100% agree. Oh,
Insane.
if you really think that you own it, don't pay property tax, and you really find out who does. You know, yeah,
Right?
it is such a clever attack. I always hated the whole Indian Affairs Act because it ga- it didn't give people any opportunity, didn't give them pride in owning something. And I always wanted, we should end that. So natives, welcome. We're all brothers and sisters here. We're all here to make Canada a better place. I didn't think that the government would actually use that to enslave us all. Clever bastards. Clever girl.
Right? Clever girl.
You dated
Yeah.
yourself.
I know, right? Hey man, Jurassic Park was sweet. I love that movie.
It really
But
was.
that's it. 100%. And that's what terrifies me. Not terrifies me, but it's always okay, I like this idea that the liberals push. Now, when does the other shoe drop? I love the idea.
Yes.
I love the idea of nuclear power. Oh man, I wish everything was nuclear. I wish we lived in like Fallout universe where everything was nuclear powered and we had floating robots and all this cool crap. But I'm
You
waiting.
have Homer Simpson that accidentally hits
Why?
that wrong button.
Yeah.
The Chernobyl energy drink.
Yeah. Like I just I'm just waiting for what's the actual intent. And that's what bothers me the most.
So
Like,
here's my concern. Like my biggest, I just hate the state. I think the state is behind all of this. Behind them is the bankers, but they basically use the First Nations. They're the tip of the spear of their attack on us, and they're
mhm.
using them as useful idiots. And I think that's kind of their usefulness has run out. I can sense it. The people are fed up. They're blaming the First Nations, but it's really the government, the liberal government behind it. But now someone's going to do something stupid, and the government's going to use that as an excuse to come in and say there's hate speech regulations. There's an insurrection on our hands. There's all these
Mhm.
crazy white supremacists, and the reason I ran for the People's Party and the reason I'm still doing podcasting is we have to find some way to get out of this by containing the state.
How do we? Genuine question. How do we actually push back against this?
I can try answering that. It's not going to be easy, but I look at what's happening now in the political landscape, and this is now what my co-hosts J.P. Berg and Chris Erickson were trying to do. We we understand that they've created a left-right kind of dichotomy,
Mhm.
left-right dialectic, where the left is completely talking about anti-vaxxers, this whole measles outbreak, American MAGA style politics coming up, and then the right they're very crude, but they're talking about Pierre Poilievre, our savior. He's like 20 points up in the polls, and then if you go further right, they're talking about anti-Semitism and everything.
Yeah.
And I think there's a non-voter in the middle, and if we can present some sort of leadership structure, if the PPC is listening, if you want to do this, I'm happy to take a back seat and you guys do this. But you need real leadership. You need real vision. You need to provide a vision for the country that sidesteps the banking community, the debt slavery that's been set up.
Yep.
Like it's not going to be easy, but I swear to God, we can do this in one election cycle. We just we need to we need to find a coalition of the willing, not the one in Europe fighting Ukraine, but a coalition of Canadian willing people that want to um, use reason basically to chart a path forward.
And start using some of the left tactics because they work. People are emotional people. People don't have time, and this is what I was saying earlier. When I hear the WEF stuff and the globalists and all that stuff, I glaze over because I'm just a normie. Ultimately, I'm a normie. I'm not some deep politico. I can't tell you all that stuff. I'm just, I don't know. I like playing video games, I like hanging out with my kids. I like talking to people and kind of getting there where they actually are. I drive a truck. Literally drive a semi. I'm as like normie as it comes. And I tried to look at where are those people? They're concerned about getting their kids, a good education. They're concerned about job opportunities, about whether the country that they're in will have those same opportunities that they had. So it's more how do you reach those people and actually get them fired up? And that was one thing Trump was very, very good at was what is the base talking about and getting in there using the same tactics that the liberals use. So as Breitbart said that politics is downstream from culture, the liberals have been very good at getting themselves ingratiated in the culture and making them the culture. And look at their messaging. Even in that terrible budget, look how inspiring it sounded. He didn't give you any of like the champagne, whatever whatever the dude's name is. Listening to it, it was actually inspiring. This is what we've done. Look at the hard work we've done. We can't stop and blah 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 blah. It was inspiring. And then you hear the other side. No, this sucks. This sucks. Canada sucks. Canada sucks. It's like, okay, I don't know. When I turn on the 10 o'clock news, like any normal person turns on the 10 o'clock news and goes, "All right, well, what happened? Wow, the liberals brought this resounding speech." And then look at the conservatives. Canada sucks. Canada sucks. Canada sucks. It's like, well, those guys sound like bumps on a log. Jesus,
Yeah.
nothing redeeming.
How are you supposed to, I don't know, make people actually care about things if you're constantly talking about how much the country they live in sucks? Just gonna say, like, let's bring it back to, or let's talk about the things that make Canada great, and I'll bring it back to Freedom Convoy. That was the first time in a long time that I was proud to be Canadian again. We need
Yeah.
to do more things like that, like show more Canadian pride in order to get people fired up. What they're doing to Canada right now doesn't get anybody fired up. I feel like we're doomed.
So I guess the shortest way I can share my thoughts on this is um, the problem I have with the Conservative Party. Their goal is to form government, which it kind of makes sense because if you want to change the trajectory of the country, you need a majority.
Mhm.
So when you make that argument, you're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. But when your goal is to form government, you have to pander to the center because that forms the majority of your party. You can't pander to the far left, you can't pander to the far right, and you can't say anything that's outside of the Overton window. That's the problem with the Conservative Party. Um, the country is in such a terrible state that you need somebody, it could be Maxime Bernier, but whoever, someone to go in and say, listen, these are the problems. The banking system has been taken over since 1973. The family unit's been broken up since 1960. Multiculturalism since the 1960s. And, and you have to try to get into one or two different ridings and get a couple of MPs in, not to form government, but to speak truth to power. That's kind of what we need right now. But the problem is when you do that, the Conservative Party freaks out. They say you're splitting the vote, and
Mhm.
they turn around and they snuff you out. And what I've been calling the Conservative Party, I say they're a department of the Liberal Party. Their only purpose is to just crush any populist movement that springs up.
Well, and I think anyone that looks as government as the solution will always turn to government for the solution.
Unfortunately,
So
yeah.
I think actually getting in culture, and maybe it's a good thing that you didn't win because now you can actually speak culturally. You could be such a more effective voice that, hey, I got to see the inner workings. I got to play with its insides, and it's gross. Like politics is gross. These people are dirty. They're backstabbing, conniving little goblins. Like, you know, I think that's so much more important. Like Okay, after COVID, everyone that was, oh my God, all the goodwill, as I was talking about, all the goodwill that was amassed in the scientific community and trust in government and institutions evaporated, gone. And what was the next thing they tried to pull? Monkeypox.
Ukraine. What was it?
Monkeypox.
Oh yeah,
Monkeypox. How many
I saw
people
that.
bought into that?
Monkeypox,
Yeah. No one cared. They said
right?
no, the majority went, yeah, whatever.
Have you seen what they're doing now? Measles. They're saying there's a measles outbreak.
Oh my God, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. That
No, we were
Canada has
talking about that
dropped
on
off
Monday.
yeah, that we're no longer measles eradicated.
Yeah, we're no longer a safe country for that. And then just
Yeah.
asking that question because they just go, well, it's the anti-vaxxers. It's like, well, is it? Is it the anti-vaxxers? Or is it maybe the country that these people don't have to get a measles vaccine in order to enter the country? Is it
Right?
maybe the
Like
10
how
million people that were imported that come from measles rich? That's their only export is measles. Like, is it maybe those
like
countries? Maybe.
how insane is that? How insane is it that coming into Canada does not require you to have a measles vaccine and the amount of people that they're importing? Come on, guys. It has nothing to do with the anti-vaxxers, it's what the government's doing.
But that's
They're
the
literally
narrative.
importing these people that
Y-
do not require these things. And these things should be required in order to go to different countries or to come into different countries. And like when I went to Cuba and I had to get the oh god, the hepatitis, I don't know, A and B. I think those are the two that are not
Not the AIDS ones.
sexually transmitted. Yeah. I think hepatitis C is that one, but it's hepatitis A and B. I had to get those shots before I went there. And I got sick as a dog from all three of those shots that I had to get. But you know what? That was what it was needed in order to go there. And like back when I was still baking in my mom's belly, we were originally
Yeah.
supposed to move to Africa with my bio dad because he got a job out there. So we were going to move to Africa. My mom, my sister had to get a bunch of shots and stuff like that in order to go there. They got all the shots. Like though these are normal things if you're going to different countries to have to get vaccinated for certain things that are more prominent in those countries. Like how is something as simple as measles not something that is mandatory to have to be
I don't
vaccinated
like
from in
that
order
word.
to come to Canada?
I
Which
don't
part?
like that word. I don't like the
Which
I
part?
mandatory.
I think
Mandatory.
our country is Canada. It got taken over a long time ago. I had a guest on yesterday. We were talking about the banking system. So in '73, our banks we switched over from a national bank, free interest free loans, and then we started taking loans in from the private banks. And the guest he basically said our country we got hijacked at that point. But like right now the purpose of bringing in immigrants, yes, they're trying to destroy our culture and cause division. That's like an added benefit, but the banks need new blood to be able to give loans to people that have some savings because they've completely raped and plundered the native Canadian population. I think this is why you don't see any more white people working anywhere, because the banks have completely destroyed, demoralized them. They're either dead in a gutter somewhere, they're addicted to fentanyl, or they've moved out to the middle of nowhere. I in West Vancouver, I don't see any white people anymore. They
Oh,
definitely are not working.
no. We run on debt. We are a debt economy. We need debt in order to prop
Exactly.
up this whole facade.
Doesn't even make sense. How does having debt prop you up in any sort of way? That doesn't
Doesn't
make
prop you
sense
up;
to
it
me.
props them up because
Yeah.
you're working and you're paying interest to them. At
All
some
right,
point
that's
you
fair.
can't
That
pay
makes sense
interest
then.
anymore and then you drop out. I think that's what's happened to the native Canadian population.
Mhm.
That's just my theory.
Well, and I think that's why personally, like even something as simple as people talk about the what's it, 15-minute cities. The government wants everybody to live into the cities because they're easier to control if they're in the cities and not in the rural areas. But it's and they make the statements about how for you not to own any property. The government's going to own property and you're going to be paying into it. And of course, these are all like tinfoil hat things, potentially, but it kind of makes sense when you think about it. Exactly that. You will constantly be indebted to the government. If you do not own your own property and you're paying rent to the government because they're the ones that own it, oh God, like that is the
See,
last thing I would want.
but this is why it's so appealing to, then like our children. Why it's so appealing. I wish I could. I don't know. Maybe I'll see if I could find it. But there was a chick that she was like, so I work 40 hours a week. I can't even afford the food. I can't afford rent. I can't afford this. I can't afford that. What's the point? Literally, what's the point of going to work? I can't even afford the stuff that I, would have. I can't afford it. So
Right, she's not wrong.
yeah, they're checking out. So
What
this is
what you're describing is slavery.
yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. It's the banking system. They're printing money out of thin air into existence, and they're giving it to you, and you have to work to pay back that interest. You're basically working for the banks that don't do anything. It's a slavery system, and that woman, she's correctly identifying that the like if you don't give enough food to your slaves, they will die. That's what's happening
Mhm.
to that girl.
Yeah. And it becomes appealing when the government says, "Hey, you know what? Why own a property? Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." And it becomes really appealing because you've destroyed any idea of entrepreneurship.